We welcome you to the Priscilla R. Tyson Cultural Arts Center for our Conversations and Coffee on this 26th day of the month of September. And we're into the season of fall. Yay. Do I hear a yay? Yay. I'm Ellen O'Shaughnessy, coordinator of the program. We're delighted to have with us today Katie B. Funk. Katie Bridget Funk, who is an artist, writer, curator, and educator, and our guest surrounding us with this amazingly beautiful poet. Well, you are a poet, so you are calling us to poetry, to hold a galaxy. And Katie was with us in the recent past, and we miss her very much. Been with us as an administrator and artist, and delightful to have you visiting us, celebrating your life as an artist, writer, curator, and educator, even if we have to give you over to Las Vegas, Nevada, where you currently live. We miss you, as I say. Katie received her Bachelor of Fine Arts from St. Mary's College in Notre Dame, Indiana in 2012. Yay. And her Master of Fine Arts from Columbus College of Art and Design in 2018. She is anticipating receiving the second Master of Fine Arts from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas in 2025. Katie, for these moments of this introduction of you, you call us to poetry, analogy, and in that sense, we get inside this milieu that you share, that you were born on a Friday night under a waning crescent moon in South Bend, Indiana, and you would soon, just a couple of years later, get the chance to haphazardly construct a double-bottled tornado maker in preschool, no less. A project which remains a pivotal core of your memory. Once a pile of Barbasol shaving cream was plopped in front of Katie to play with in the early days of your kindergarten, fates were sealed. Imagine this. And Katie B. Funk knew art was her life. Shall we applause at this point? Yes! Bravo! Since those formative years, she has, and these are all the things she's been about, scooped ice cream, patched and painted walls, iced cinnamon rolls, ground coffee art handled, slung around Midwesternly huge platters of gummy prime rib, poured beers, arranged flowers, fried a smorgasbord of finger foods, opened wine, taught first years in college, taught first graders in an after-school program, arranged cookies, babysat kids, dog-sat dogs, shaken cocktails, pulled weeds, checked in cardiology patients, baked scones, and assisted in a number of artistic studios. Katie's work oscillates between questions of the serious and seriously funny. What constitutes the perfect cheeseburger? Why does heartbreak taste like iron and salt? Which episode entered SpongeBob SquarePants into the zeitgeist? What is the dish that all final girls, sole survivors chased by a villain, avoid at Thanksgiving? What does cardboard think about it? Think after it has been discarded? Is she currently manic, or does she just want to have fun? You both, you, Katie, are fun. Katie Bridget Funk has exhibited her work in multiple cities across Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, and Nevada. Building a mercurial space in both the making and the made, her work endlessly chases the spaces that allow for static work to come alive and live work to stand still. Peering through multi-sourced lens in a cross-pollinated practice, she hunts the possibilities of a tender construction through deconstruction, always making certain to leave a light on down the hall. The lights are on here and down the hall, Katie. Take it away. So glad to have you with us.
Hi. Oh my God, thank you so much for coming. Yeah, Ellen said it all. Artist statements are such a funny thing because I think they're always changing and evolving, either with maybe how you're kind of traversing through your life or the art that you're making or both. So the current graduate program that I'm in right now has had us do a lot of writing and a lot of soul searching and a lot of thinking and et cetera. So I really like the kind of just tongue-in-cheek of, instead of kind of listing a couple things, I decided to list everything I've ever done. I've had a lot of part-time jobs, so thank you for going through all of that and bearing with my poetry. But yeah, I worked here at the Cultural Arts Center from 18 or 19 to 2022. I started at the front desk and it was great. And then I eventually started doing some admin work, social media, website stuff, helping with installs, and it was great. And it was very sad to say goodbye, which I'll talk about what I said goodbye with and for. Just to kind of start, I'm going to show some images of some previous work that sort of led to what's getting installed right now, and then I'll kind of shift to what we have going on the walls in here. What's on the screen right now, this is an installation. This was my final thesis work at Columbus College of Art and Design in 2018. So it comprises of a hand-cut wallpaper, and the kind of the wallpaper elements were the first thing applied. It's all prescription bottles at the bottom that have all been kind of heat gun melted and filled with soil. And then that kind of cloud-like formation are all a bunch of silhouettes of myself. So a little bit closer shot. This was sort of my, I guess, magnum opus at the time. I feel like I'm always trying to make something outstanding or, you know, earth-shattering, and then I kind of move on. But I got some really great advice to sort of take the elements as they are and sort of take this and run with it. So instead of kind of reinstalling this whole thing, to just work with these silhouette figures. So this is kind of a close-up of what each of those kind of compiled of. They're all individual, they're all different. All hand cut. I'm insane, and I really like X-Acto knives and scissors and doing things by hand. So it was sort of time once graduation happened and the post-grad blues inevitably hit. I eventually was able to get a new exhibition in Dayton, Ohio. This is at the Dayton Society of Artists, and I just love this shot my friend got with the beautiful chandelier that I feel like elevated and made the work even cooler. But you can kind of see a little glimpse that this was just the silhouettes now at this point and a brand new kind of configuration. This was at I'm blanking on the name. This was another place in Columbus it got to go. And this time I was trying to think about how I could shape it to resemble when cicadas, this gets real specific, cicadas that live underground get invaded. As we know, there's 1-year cicadas, there's 13-year, there's 17-year. It can happen to any of them. They basically get invaded with a fungus, and it grows out of them, and they become a host. So there's kind of this like hint of a cicada kind of upturned at the bottom, and then all this kind of growth going upward. So I really started to play with kind of how these pieces could be basically a different puzzle every single time. I did get to do a window installation. I call it Ysplanti, Michigan. I know that it's Ypsilanti, Michigan, but every time I see the sign, that's how my brain reads it. And this was really cool. I'd never done a window installation before, so this kind of let viewers see something different on the outside to whatever they kind of saw on the inside. They do have a fluorescent glow on the back of them, so that kind of gave it a new look with depending on how like the sun or cloud was hitting it that day. Another configuration. Yeah, this one.
How did you have to run outside to arrange them?
So I could see it as I was doing it on the window, and then probably like a dozen times I ran outside to see how it was coming along, because I could see them with the amount of light. I could see what was happening, but I knew everything that I was seeing was in reverse. So I did take some time to make sure. Always the falling one. I always put her up last, etc. But yes, excellent.
Attach it to the fabric?
It's actually attached directly to the window, and this was with painter's tape. So you could see little pieces of blue, which I thought were kind of a fun. It was a little more kind of like lo-fi installation. I wasn't hiding how they were installed anymore. So that kind of blue painter's tape was contrasting, I thought, nicely with the orange. But yeah. And then I did another iteration with it in the studio I had at the time at 400. These were the 3 different dresses I wore throughout all the silhouettes. And so I kind of did this like performance-y piece where I went around and made it like really dramatic as I was putting it up. So it kind of became more insect-y. I think like the iteration of that kind of infestation kind of took over with this one. Then to shift more toward grad school, which I'm in now again at UNLV in Vegas, I kind of took this same idea, and I think, yeah, I have an up-close shot. So it's the same idea, but this time I really wanted to control more of what each sequence is happening throughout like the entire installation shot. So the Cindy Sherman, I look at her work a lot, and some of her, like I think her most known work is her untitled film stills, and a lot of work with portraiture that she's been doing over like multi-decades. But she also made these really, really cool silhouette pieces that are super like old and like her early work. That's what inspired these guys. Oh no. It was dyed green. I've had pretty much every color except yellow. I haven't done yellow. Oh yeah, it was electric. It was green. Actually, side story, when I first got to Vegas, my hair was kind of blondish and then purple at the bottom, and I really wanted green for some reason. And I went to a place, obviously I'd never been there before, very sweet person, but I was there for like pushing 9 hours, and that's not right. But it was really, really green, so I got what I wanted. But yeah, did you have a question?
What color do you like?
My favorite color is orange. Yeah, and I have had orange hair too, so.
You feel orange make you have a certain feeling to it?
Oh yeah, orange I think it's always been my favorite since I was a kid. I think it's like juicy. You can smell it, you can taste it, you can see it. Like it just multi-sensory, which I think people can do with many different colors, but orange in particular has just always stood out.
Certain colors give certain feelings to certain people.
Oh yeah, for sure. When you wear it, when you see it, depending on where, if you're putting your art with something, a white wall versus an orange wall will be totally different. Absolutely, yeah.
Well, I like Katie B. Funk. I think you should drop the K. Katie B. Fun.
Aw, that could be another iteration. I'd be fine with that. There's Katie B, B Funk, Funky Fresh. We can do Katie B Fun. I would totally take that. This again was just sort of breaking down how I apply perfume and sort of playing with that left or right reading sequence of the silhouettes themselves. And then I started to shift a little bit. The grad program that I'm in right now, CCAD was 2 years, UNLV's is 3. So it moves at a blinding pace, but it still feels a little bit more just because you have that extra year. I've been able to do tons of different projects and works and exhibitions over the time that I've been there. And this was gearing more towards the end of my first year. I started playing, I love cursive handwriting. I'm really sad they don't really teach it anymore. I think some schools do that I hear, which is great. I understand we're moving ever faster to technology overload, but I think cursive teaches you how to find your own handwriting, and all that repetition. I studied Japanese in high school. It's my favorite culture, and all that repetition of the symbols that we were learning kind of took me back to, first, second grade learning cursive. So I started playing with how could I actually kind of cut it out. And so this was the original kind of what it was looking like, kind of grayscale and then usual kind of brown cardboard backing. And then this pile here is actually on the other wall behind me. It's a reverse cursive piece, so it's already super hard to read and then extra hard on top of it. And this one, I didn't realize until I finished, I actually put it up in reverse and backwards, so it's even harder. There is a trick, if you want to ask me at the end, there is a trick if you want to read it a little more quickly, but I really wanted to play with how do you make a person really stop and look for a long time with your work, which I think is like, we all want that. And I think like quick glimpses and return visits and all that's great too, but I really wanted to push like frustrating you to try to figure it out what it said. So this is something I think leading up to my thesis, which will happen in April of 25. I'm kind of hearkening back to this as well. And then, of course, as cheeseburgers were mentioned, I had to make sure I put some in as well. This was the very first thing I did my spring semester of the first year at UNLV. And I kind of just wanted to like see it exist in the world. I didn't really have like a super deep meaning behind it. I just had this huge piece of cardboard, and I love cheeseburgers, so I thought, let's make it colorful and glittery. This is to scale. I'm very clearly proud of it. But it was a lot of fun. It now resides above my bed, so it's my little headboard. But I also really liked activating it. And, with that kind of life size, again, it's like this could be another performance. This could be, photographed over and over. These could become their own silhouettes. I think that's definitely been a thread through over the years that I've been making work. And then I started working with taking kind of like little elements, little imagery, collage, and thinking about how I could put it together in a way that was like completely unique, which is like, everybody wants to do that. But I really wanted to try and see how I could construct, again, we have a little burger. This, if you can tell from the screen, it's got like a little bit of like a almost gummy residue on it. It's covered in hot glue. So this is just a straight magazine cutout. This has a little bit of hot glue over it. This is completely hot glue. It's a little tough to read against the wall, but it's a ceiling fan. So a student, I was actually TAing a sculpture class. She made a huge sculpture just out of hot glue, and it blew my mind. I never thought to think like, oh, you could just sculpt with hot glue, and you kind of are thinking about it's the thing you don't want to see when you're putting something together. You want that glue and adhesion hidden, but I like to bring it to the forefront. So it became a part of a larger collage where basically, I'll just give it a minute. I won't look at it. Maybe it'll stop. Basically, I held all these elements and then photographed, holding all these elements together individually, and then collage those elements together so you can still see my hands with all the imagery coming together. So instead of me trying to like seamlessly collage these things together, I'm kind of showing you physically, this is how this is held, this is how this is laid. There's two chairs with kind of those like fleur-de-lis. I was trying to be fancy and like a French cafe vibe. So there's 2 chairs, there's a little table, and there's the ceiling fan, and then everything else is an image. So I really am fascinated by having objects and then taking images of those objects and then printing them and then making them objects again and kind of doing this like back and forth 2D, 3D kind of conversation. So that is that one. And then perfect timing, shifting more into what I ended up doing for this show. The call was out in 2022, and I knew I was going to move, but I still wanted to try. So I applied in 22 and was accepted for 2024, and here we are, which is insane, about to be at 25. And so I had a long time to think about what I wanted to do, and I knew I had the challenge of funds are tight, like everyone I'm sure knows. So I can't really create and ship large paintings or sculptures. I had to kind of think about how can I get everything here almost in just like one box. And that's exactly what I did. Oh, wow, lots of text. So everything pretty much came in a box. It's actually on the other side of the wall. Yeah.
I see you using a lot of hands. You like using hands?
I sure do. I do. I think they're already such a part of like every tool you use and everything that you are utilizing to make things, they're kind of already there. And tracing my hand was a big thing. Like I loved doing that as a kid, and I will keep like notebooks and sketchbooks all the time. And if I have filler pages, I'll often just trace my hand. And they're fun to look back at and see how they change over the years and get bigger, I guess, or smaller, and like rings and stuff that I'm wearing. But that kind of sparked me to this point where I was tracing hands similar to what I was doing with the collage over imagery, but they just weren't working for me. They weren't making me sing at all. So I realized I had a little projector that I had bought about a year ago, and I just thought, why don't you try projecting a hand or hands and doing trace drawings, which are all sitting on that table over there, and on the screen too, a sample. And I wanted to try to find hands that were actively doing things. So these are actually pressing out pizza dough. So if you look closely, there's pieces missing because that's what was in the dough. So I wanted to find all kinds of hands. I wanted to work with all different expressions and gestures and sizes. And it kind of just took off from there. And in my same kind of multiples obsessed way of working, I started to make more and more and more. I had this work, which eventually became the spiral work back on the wall there. I had these these little cardboard pieces that always reminded me of cell phones. And I thought, like, what conversation is being had? Like, what's being exchanged? So I was trying to let the hands sort of dictate how that would go. And then another shot of them kind of next to it. And I started to incorporate a little bit of imagery, working with kind of gravity and, again, different gestures. And these, I want to count. I'm not sure how many I have. I think I probably have like 300, 400 maybe that I made. And this was getting closer again to that final iteration over there. But just thinking about how this, like the full silhouette I'd been working with before, I'm almost seeing them now in these just hands, that they're almost like head to toe bodies just within, the palm and the fingers, the wrist, etc. And then again, as it started to work its way in with other elements, I got really into space over the summer. And I, watched lots of YouTube videos, and I tried to read lots of things and watch lots of shows. And I learned so many mind-blowing things that just made my head hurt in a good way. And I actually ended up, and this is just promo for the show, I reached out to all of the astronomy PhD students at UNLV, and there was maybe like 2025 on the list, and I emailed them all. I just BCC, blind copied, sent it in the dark. And I just said, I'm, an art student, I'm this, blah, blah, blah. I have a show coming up, and I really wanted to talk to a person who knew about space and not Google it or read it or write. I wanted to just have a conversation with someone that really knew what they were talking about. So I figured, what better than a PhD in that subject? So I talked with Dr. Margaret Johnston, and they were great, and we talked for probably like an hour and a half. And I actually have the notes and questions that I scribbled down beforehand on scraps of the hand paper. It's on that little tiny wall over there. Those were kind of the questions that I pelted her with, everything from how are we not getting sucked into a black hole to if we have, all of this mass and all of this, like it just goes on, and like your brain can't comprehend the number of zeros of size that the universe is. Like, how are we the only ones? What does this all mean? We got really deep. Then they told me they were also a philosophy. I don't know if they were PhD, but they also enjoyed philosophy too. So that was a great conversation, and that really doing that kind of outreach, I really appreciated having someone respond and be able to kind of take the independent solo quest to find information and kind of make it, a human connection with someone else. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're working, do you sometimes lose track of time?
Yes. Yes. I've lost track of time installing too.
You work and then all of a sudden, it's like 5 hours went by.
Yeah.
It seems like a minute.
Oh yeah. It definitely, I wish I could just have all day and all night and just not have to like have an income so that I could just work and make. It's great when it happens because I think you want to find, we're all trying to like find that groove when we're making our work. So when time has just passed and it's suddenly I'm starving and it's 9:30 at night, I know like, okay, I think some things got done today. So yeah. And I think the work in here right now spans about 2 years. A big chunk of it was made more recently, kind of this summer and spring. The very blatant blank wall with just one hand right now. I wanted to include this because I had probably like 50 some things on the wall and it just was not working. And I really wanted to share that rather than try to hide it and like not tell you about it, because I think it's important for artists and other artists to know, like if something's not working, like it's okay to admit it. And once you've kind of admitted it, like omit it. You gotta like erase it, take it down, whatever it is. So we're still tangoing a little bit. I have less than a day, and so it opens tomorrow. I will have more on that wall, but overall, yeah, I think I'm really excited to just you work on it in pieces, so to see it all come together. Yeah.
Your early pieces showed relationship. I don't know that you can share some of that. You're a person for all people, the way you talk and you're fun. I would like to see you put some of that on the wall.
Person.
All the people gathered.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary. It's diversity personified. It's a spiritual passion. And there's a definition I read the other day of spirituality, spiritual passion. And an artist is that kind of person. And so I'd like to see you put all those persons on the wall.
I think it's in everything right now, obviously except this because it's still being figured out, but there's definitely relationships and things that I'm thinking about, and like the humor versus the grief, or like the up, the down, whatever, that kind of like duality. I think I tried to curate, like select pieces that have both of those things, if maybe one is kind of more the other. But like for example, I have this one, which kind of doubles as a sculptural relief, but it's also a house, but it's also a face. And it's sort of a portrait of someone that's awful. So I know that maybe someone looking at it, and like, it's called big personality, they're not going to necessarily know that. But that kind of juxtaposed with more like all of these images on the wall I photographed when I got to school at UNLV. They're basically all the tools that I had, and I just wanted to kind of capture this is what I've got to work with, because when you move across country, you kind of have to like chuck a lot of things off the boat to get there. So to me, it was like a kind of a performance of stills rather than video or kind of live performance. But yeah, there's like former relationship stuff in the spiral one. There's a family portrait in the bleed through drawings. The bleed through drawings, they kind of started at CCAD. I was really infatuated with ink seeping through to the other side of paper, which is often like, we don't want that to happen, or we don't want that like seepage to, occur. We want to keep it really tight and in line. But I sort of saw that as a really fun way of mark making. So it's a portrait of my family, but I'm not born yet. So I'm thinking about like, with all this galaxy big stuff, how it can also whittle down to these really, really small units too, and small moments. Being a bigger part of the larger picture, but also being kind of more intimate and small. So yeah, I think that, yeah. I have the like the statement and the labels and everything. We're getting everything finished up today and tomorrow, but I did want to share just a part of my statement, that How to Hold a Galaxy comprises hand-cut paper, found imagery, drawings, performance stills, relief sculptures, and wearables that each bring into question the idea of patterns, cycles, collage, and infinite possibilities. Edges of paper have been cut to subtle curves, ink has seeped through flattened paper planes, and disparate images have been paired into the familiar and traversable object of earrings. Cursive writing bends and loops, making one fight to decipher. Bewitched hands hold a pizza and ask you, how many slices, baby? How one might hold a galaxy is as answerable as the universe is vast. The harder one tries to hold, the further the center folds. So, yeah, I think the infinite mass of the universe is sort of a big topic to try to whittle down into like a collection of works. But I think that kind of tug of war, or that struggle and, imposter syndrome and this isn't working or whatever, that I think it all really led it and pushed it out to where it's at today. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I didn't see these over there.
The mic?
I just saw what you were showing there and on the wall. I came in kind of late, but it reminds me of puppetry, with the hands being down there and manipulating things or going into a smaller space. And there's those Eastern Asia, like shadow plays, like behind the screen and you just see the shadows. It just has that feeling of somebody's hands coming down and manipulating, even with the galaxy, somebody holding the
Yeah, I
stars
like that.
and
I like
things.
the observation.
It's really
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely, puppetry, like, plays with shadow and light. I think it, like, what you're trying to do with your hands to make your art is already kind of like creating this other galaxy, or it's creating more of the universe as you do
your other
it.
world. Did you have something here called like wash, rinse, repeat? Was that yours?
I did. That was
I
me.
remember that.
Yes, that was in the Loft Gallery. Yes, in 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been great to come back, and yeah, that show was another wild ride. Yeah, I'm glad you remembered that.
Yeah,
Thank
I remember.
You. Yeah. Well, me. Thanks, guys.
Do something about the Golden Girls or Hidden Girls. And could you explain, remember in the introduction?
Oh, the Final Girls? Yeah, Final Girls. So I don't have I have it on my website. Final Girls, I got that was another, right before Space, I got into UNLV with the program being 3 years long. When you're a year and a half through, you do a midway, and then when you're at the end, you do your thesis work. So my midway ended up concentrating on Final Girls, which, if any of you are horror movie fans, that is what that is from. I'm a big fan, and I think in October of 2022, I tried to watch a different horror movie every day. I think I made it to like 18. I was in school, was making it a little tough to get all 31 in, but I just had this like real fascination with the idea of like the one that makes it, and why and how, and why do we watch something that scares us? And thinking about all that, I ended up doing a installation of drawings, which was sort of taking a weird sidestep because I don't consider myself a drawer. I love tracing and I love projecting and drawing, but straight kind of classical figure study. I do it my own way, I guess, but I utilized their eyes. So they were all close-up shots of 13 different Final Girl from different films and their eyes. And they were put all around the room, and it was a much smaller gallery than this, but I took out all the spotlights except 2, so it was very stark and very basement-y. And instead of them being focused on the work, I flipped them towards you, so you'd kind of stand at this like spotlit moment to like witness them all looking at you. I thought it was really cool. My committee was like, "What are you doing?" But that's grad school for you. They're supposed to like make you cry. So, but yeah, so I thought about with that interest, and then food is such a big part of what I love and enjoy, and I make work about it as well. I was kind of thinking like, man, with horror movies, like what's the Thanksgiving dish that they like don't want? And my guess is probably like the cranberry sauce, but that might, they might love it. So just thinking about these different, pathways that things go, and that's kind of where that lives. But I have more. My website's just katybfunk.com. I'm also on katybfunk on Instagram if you'd like to see more. But yeah, this has been great.
Are you going to have any type of Final Girl work in this show?
Not in this. Well, I think.
You want to repeat that for us?
Any Final Girl in this show?
Yes.
I'm not going. I don't have like what was in the midway in this show, but I do think elements of it, like prior to making it and post making it, are here. I think definitely in like kind of the more aggressive tools and the way they're held. The kind of abject nature of like it just being hands, not connected to a whole body. I think smatterings of it, and like all those threads and the deep theory I'm trying to find of what it is I do and why I do it. I think it's there. Those pieces actually, they were all on canvas, probably this big, this tall. All except one I ended up shredding off, and I turned them into big teardrops. So they just completely evolved and changed, and that was an idea I had, and I got pushback from a studio visit, and I didn't care, so I did it anyway. And they are now living in my apartment. But I try to be open to how things can evolve, and that being like that, including my own work, because I think too much like preciousness can make it too. It just gets you stuck. It kind of boxes you in. So if you can change it, or use it again, or recycle it, or whatever it is. But yeah, good question. I think elements of the girls are here. Sure.
So far, influences have been Cindy Williams, or
Cindy Sherman?
Cindy Sherman. Cindy Sherman, space, horror movies. So it sounds like you've got like a very wide range of influences. anything beyond that, like literature or?
Oh yeah, I have a massive list on Amazon of books I want to read, and I have a decent collection of library of my own. I think I credit it to loving buffets as a kid. And I still, like, I haven't gone, I've been to one in Vegas. I know that's like a thing out there. It was okay. I was like, this is a lot. But I think they're fascinating because it's just so many choices and it's all right there. And it's all these colors, flavors, smells, textures, tastes, and you can have anything and you can have it all on plate and then you can go do it again and then you can go do it again. So I think as a kid, we would go to Ponderosa, which I don't recommend. But like just the ice cream machine. And then another big like pivotal one was China Walk, and that was in Mishawaka, Indiana, and it was next to a Mega Play, which is actually the last bleed through drawing on the right is a still image from Mega Play, where it's again this like kids, you know, slides and there's pinball machines and there's all these things you can do, but it's this weird indoor outdoor space that's kind of like liminal and like creepy, but it's cool because it's colorful and fun and you're a kid and you don't really see it like that. And then when you grow up and you're on the adult side of it, it's like, okay, is there a bar? But you know, like, you know, so yeah.
I know when you were here last time, stuff you have like stuff for sale in the
Yes.
gift shop that is clay medium. So what is your favorite medium to work with?
I am teaching again this semester, which I'm very excited about, and I'm teaching beginning ceramics. Ceramics is what I actually focused in on in my undergrad years, and I'm kind of coming home to clay. I knew I couldn't really get it here for this, but I am teaching it, and I do love it. If I don't know that I could pick one medium because I like everything. If I had to totally pick like one answer, I guess I would probably say sculpture, because sculpture can really be anything and everything, and it can be 2D and 3D and performance and light and sound. If I was forced to whittle it down, that's what I would say. Yes.
I don't want to get too biblical on you, but Jeremiah has that beautiful image of God saying to the prophet, go down to the potter's house, and when you get there, I'll talk to you. And then he shows him the potters doing what potters do. So why don't you let me do that to you, to fashion you into a beautiful being? And your work evidences all of that. You do it with the hands, creating the universe and the evolution of, that looks like Noah's Ark behind you.
That's a good, yeah. Yeah, that's interesting, yeah. Yeah.
You and I were talking about Albert Einstein.
Yes, I quoted him in my statement, yes.
Yes.
When I was doing research regarding like space and time and all the infinites, it came across Albert Einstein was trying to basically console like a good family friend. The friend had just died, so with the family, he was talking about like basically, misquote, the illusion of the past, the present, and the future is the only thing that's keeping us from those who have passed and those who are here. And I just thought, well, that's really cool and like very like beautiful, and it is like religious in a way, but it's not boxing out anybody. It's just time and space, and that's everyone, no matter what, you know, the faith is. So I think that, you know, I think about that a lot as well with, again, playing with the idea of if something's really funny or if something's really sad. And I have, you know, like the pizza on the front wall, and the wall behind that is the reverse cursive piece, which is like super duper personal, you know, story, or kind of told in a really tight, you know, poetic 3 lines or 2 total. But again, that kind of making the viewer sort of fight to see what it is versus like you can go up to the bleed through drawings and, oh, there's a burger, like there's a cake. So trying to play with that push-pull of how close do you get to something, or do you want to kind of see it from far away to kind of all encompass it. Yeah, I think that's what I'm trying to always tread and toe that line.
Well, there's like a trick. Is that like to hold the mirror up to it, or
Yeah.
do that?
So if you want to, there is a trick. If you have a mirror or you have your phone and which I think is cool because it makes, now you're in it. As you're looking at it, you're trying to see it. You can also take a picture and reverse it. But I did make it extra tricky this time because it's backwards and it's flipped. So it's just a real brain buster, I guess. But yes, yeah, I like that again, like the push of like everything you kind of see at first glance might not be the whole of it.
There was one other thing about the hands. Some people are my age. On Captain Kangaroo, he used to have like a black box with these white gloves in it. You're too young to remember
White
that.
gloves
but
with a black box.
it
like
might be on like YouTube or something.
Uh-huh. Yeah, well, and I noted, I mean, I would say maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I remember very distinctly like looking down at my hands and being like, they look different. And I just like, it was just a moment of like, oh, time is passing, I'm aging, I'm, whatever. And like, just those little, I think, glimpses of mortality, and how they change and evolve. And, I made this ring. I don't know if you guys remember Mary Skrenta. She taught jewelry here in metalsmithing. It's a silver lost cast wax ring, and it says, "I want to make art and I want to be happy," which is kind of a life mantra that came to me in 2022. So we turned it into a ring, and I wear it all the time. And I used to wear my like class ring and a spoon ring and a ring from my Grammy, and they don't really like fit any. I was sort of suffocating my finger too with 3 rings on my ring finger, but yeah, just like suddenly it's like, oh, I can't do that anymore. I could be sad about, and you do have a moment of sadness, but you also are like, well, you sausaged your finger with 3 rings for 5 years. Like it probably is time. So yeah, I think thinking about just like those like little things, or how we need to like moisturize them in the winter, and then they're really sweaty in the summer, and just or we go the whole day and we don't even think about them. So yeah.
As far as the face behind you, are those hands the eyes, the black hands, or what is it? Okay, it's like eyelashes.
Yeah, so it's kind of this like forced smile. The train track is doubling as braces as well. And yeah, it's a depiction of a not great person. But I had a lot of fun making it, so it made it better.
You took us back to memories.
Mm-hmm.
How old were you when you had your first remembrance? As I was doing that introduction,
Yeah.
how about how old were you?
For like art?
Well,
for making
just-
art,
yeah,
or just my
as you're
oldest memory?
remembering, yeah.
Actually, I think my oldest memory was taking my like red and white dress off and seeing my shadow on my bedroom wall.
Uh-huh.
That's as far back as I can go. And I think that's my oldest memory. But my oldest like art, suddenly like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever,
Yes.
was that tornado bottle thing.
yes.
Does everybody know what I'm talking about with that? Okay.
Uh-huh.
I need to make one because they're so cool. They're so simple and they're so cool.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yes.
Anybody have a very early memory that you could share?
Yeah.
3, 4 years old, you think? 2 years old.
Oh, 2 years old memory. When you say taking the dress off, it reminded me. I had been injured on a playground on a seesaw when I was on the top and somebody got off the bottom and I flipped out and I guess I was knocked unconscious. But I can remember being in the hospital in the metal crib and them trying to pull my clothes off to put a like nightgown on or something. But when you said pull the dress off, I thought,
Yeah.
oh, I can remember that.
Yeah.
Like
I
2
thi-
years old.
It's like the because you're in the state of like, you're sleepy and you're, but you're seeing, and it blends into like dreams and daydreams, and it goes back again to like, where does a dream go in the universe? Like, yeah, it's pretty wild. And the fact that like, I believe if I'm getting my space facts correct, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 are out there right now. And Voyager 1 is the only one that's actually made it out of our solar system. And when it was X amount of ways away, pretty far, still not out of it, Carl Sagan, I think, said, like, turn the camera around so that we can see the planet, and that's where the pale blue dot came from. And he just talked about, like, we've got to take care of this. Like, we only have this one. So, yeah, it's definitely, like, bigger picture stuff, but at the same time, those, like, little minute, knuckle mark on a hand is also, like, all the stars. I also learned that if you see the stars at night, pick one and take, like, a magic rocket ship to that one star. You would see it, but in my mind, it's like this big. It's like I could like Tinkerbell around it. That's not the case. Like they're like big and they're bouncing off of each other. I also, one of the questions I asked her, I said, is space inherently lonely? And they said they don't believe that it's inherently lonely because there's so much going on all the time. And that then they also told me about like stars like join each other and then sometimes they split off, sometimes they're with each other for life. So I'm like, okay, that's good. Because it, to me, and I think I asked her like, if you got up there, is it completely silent? And it's not. There are certain things they were saying that audibly, like a human ear might not pick up and hear. But there's, lightning storms going on and gases going everywhere. So there's definitely, I think, a lot of raucous noise going on up there. Yeah. So, yeah, and then it all comes back to, for now that we know, it all comes back to here. And we're the only ones that we know of that are like us. And that's just really mind-blowing when you think about it. So.
A PBS show this week about Albert Einstein and entanglement, that idea that
Check that out.
things that are once together are always entangled and they influence each other at a distance.
Oh, I like that. That's very poetic.
That is
Yes.
exciting.
I think I joined PBS as like a member. I wanted to watch one show and they were like $10.99. I'm like, okay, I want to see it. But yeah, I'll have to check that out. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. I think that's everything. I have the opening receptions tomorrow, 6 to 8, and there will be snacks and drinks and music, and I'll be there, and we'll, have a good time.
Well, wonderful to have you with us
Thank you,
again.
Alan. Thank you so much. Thank you.
We miss you so much.
You guys too.
Here.